Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob Licklater here. It's Sunday, so that means it's another episode of Doctor Who Series 12, Episode 3, Orphan 55, written by Ed Hime. As always, there are going to be spoilers in this video. This is my initial thoughts, and I'm going to have to spoil things. That's just how these things sort of work. So if you haven't seen the episode, go watch it, and then you come back and watch this video. Or keep watching if you don't care about spoilers. But I will. But also, and also because YouTube, because the regulations have changed, as well, Doctor Who is a family show and children can watch it. This video is not aimed at children. I am an adult, and I'm watching this show from an adult perspective. And because it's a family show and it's not held to slightly higher standards than your typical kids show, I'm going to be coming at this as if I was as an adult viewer. Of course, to say COPPA compliant. So, if you are a child, you should not be watching this. That being said, Orphan 55. Okay. Now, being in America, we get some of the discourse of reactions of each episode beforehand, and this one seems divisive. Like, really divisive. It was written by Ed Hime, who he wrote one of my favorite episodes of last series, It Takes You Away. I really enjoyed It Takes You Away because it was very V&A, let's do some abstract ideas and some interesting stuff. And now Orphan 55 wasn't nearly as abstract, which was wasn't really a letdown. I was just hoping we would continue that theme. Because this is much more concrete, but it still feels very late 1980s Doctor Who, which, Sylvester McCoy is my favorite Doctor, and that's my favorite era. So, you're gonna make me happy if you invoke the McCoy era of the show. But I will say, and I will say, Orphan 55 has a great premise: holiday resort that gets attacked by aliens. Now, we're going to get into the big problem of the episode, and it's not actually a lot. It's one that everyone else, if you've seen anyone, it's probably what they're mentioning. The pacing and the editing. This episode is edited so poorly. I don't think it's the script's fault. I genuinely don't. Now, the script has issues. I will discuss the script's issues, because the script is mostly for the fault of the pacing. But this episode is only 46 minutes long, when we know they're allowed a runtime of 50 minutes per episode. They had 4 more minutes they could have filled, and for whatever reason they didn't. They kept cutting and quickly, and everything was just frenetic, and, shaky cam, and everything just sort of kept going. This episode was directed by Lee Haven Jones, who directed Spyfall Part 2, which I don't remember if I've really discussed too much of the direction on Spyfall Part 2, but Spyfall Part 2's direction was great. It was good. This one is definitely a step down, and I don't think that may be in the shots. That may just be in the editing room. So this might be on your editors getting this episode put together, because it doesn't feel great. Because, let's be honest, everything being so shaky and like, okay, we're beat for beat, getting through the editing, go, running as quickly as we can. It's something that I think is a problem, especially for, this episode. This episode needs to have, a bit more substance to it. It's an episode where you have some great ideas and some great stuff, but the editing just doesn't slow down. This episode is running at a breakneck pace. Seriously, and that's where the script issues come in. This episode has enough material in it to fill 6 episodes of Classic Who, and would be a great 6-parter. Seriously, if this was produced in Classic Who, it could very easily be there are definitely the makings of a classic Doctor Who story. Interesting setting, fun characters that go through some character arcs. The Doctor being involved. And just some stuff some nice ideas that have been done. It has been done, things that have been done before in Doctor Who, I will admit, but also a great sort of a great an integration of a message into a plot. That I will get back to, because there are some issues with that. too. Don't get me wrong. This could be an amazing episode of Doctor Who, an amazing Doctor Who story, if it's slowed down, because this is very much doing the sort of the 4-in-2 structure of a 6-parter. Like, the first quarter of the episode is right in the resort. By about the quarter mark, we are out of the resort onto the planet, and we're eventually back in the resort. But at that point, the plot has shifted from the base being under a kind of a base under siege type thing to a rescue mission type story with twists and turns, and plot thickenings that need more time to breathe. That need more time to breathe if they want to be effective, if they want to work as a story, and if it just wants to make the story more enjoyable. That's the big issue here, is that just the quick, we're running through this as fast as we can, keep going, keep getting things done. Nope, no time for stopping. We need to have the characters moving on and getting things interesting. That's the issue here. I will say, like again, you have great characters like the maintenance worker and his son. I don't remember the name of his son's name is Silas, but I don't remember what his name was. They had a decent character arc where the son was proving himself to be a better mechanic. That has great potential. Kane and eventually and her daughter, they have a good, they would have a good dramatic character arc to go through. What's her name? Like Vilma and her husband, losing her husband. That's also, a good arc. There's a lot of good stuff that you could explore here, and how the companions interact with them, and just the whole idea of this being an Earth that's been completely destroyed by climate change, and the last remaining humans have completely mutated, basically into discount hemovores. That's basically what the dregs are. They're discount hemovores. I'm gonna say it. Maybe if you invoke the hemovores, you would have some consistency. And I can all guarantee you, some people who are complaining about the dregs as a design, if they were hemovores, they would be going all over it. But I like the dregs as a design, and I like them as characters, as a good villain. They're a nice, decent I'd argue they're a good, memorable villain. And Ed Hime seems to know how to write memorable villains. First, the solo track, which, the goofiness of a frog on a chair, but the concepts behind it are fascinating, and you remember it. And you're probably going to remember the dregs, too, because they are, they are a decent... They are a decent idea of what humanity's basically de-evolved into monsters. That's something that's been done in Doctor Who before, but it is still something that you will remember after the episode's over. And that's something that I can say that, that this episode does a good job of doing. But the big issue here is that now, let's actually talk about the Doctor here, Jodie Whittaker. I think this might actually be her best performance so far. Much like It Takes You Away, she feels like the Doctor here. There's some great moments of her commanding a scene. It's like using sort of that deduction of trying to figure out, okay, what's going on this planet. Some genuine emotional range here that I think is done, excellently. Again, it seems like this season we are getting more of the Doctor. I will say there's a bit of a disconnect from the last episode with the thing. And I will say the speech at the end where the Doctor is basically talking to the audience that we need to stop climate change had a bit of a problem in that it felt like it was talking to the audience too much and not talking to the characters. Like, people are comparing it to the Invasion of the Dinosaur speech, where the Doctor talks to the characters and by proxy the audience, which, my one thing is the dinosaur speech was still directly towards the Brigadier, whereas this one just felt too fourth wall breaking. I think partially in the way it was shot, because, there were points where Jodie was dead center of the camera. She wasn't looking at her companions. I think that might actually be one of the big issues of that speech, because it's breaking the fourth wall when it shouldn't, because that almost breaks the. It doesn't break subtlety so much, but it almost kind of removes any sort of subtlety from this very non-subtle speech. At points, that's. I think that's my big issue with it. It's just, straight at camera, not a thing. Because if you're comparing it to the dinosaur speech, the doctor isn't. He's the camera has him straight on, but he's looking like off to the side towards. I believe it's towards Nick Courtney, who it's just a difference in subtle staging. I think here is where this speech doesn't entirely work. And maybe there was a couple of drafts, like a couple of minor line changes just to make it fit better in. People are also bringing up the Zygon inversion speech with the 12th Doctor. Yeah, my opinion on that speech is almost worse than this one, because that one is from a story that doesn't necessarily... That's message is literally just war bad, and doesn't actually explore any themes, where this one actually tries to explore themes and has some deeper stuff to it. So yeah, I actually prefer this. I'm going to be honest, I prefer this to the Zygon 2-parter, because this one's got some fun characters, whereas that one was 2 hours of a lot of nothing, with maybe one or two scenes that were good and could have got close but never got there. But yeah, it's also... I also love that that the Chibnall era has been seems to be playing around with, these are only possible futures. They aren't necessarily, which is, again, it's something that you sort of is an unspoken rule with Doctor Who, but kind of making it spoken, I think, is really, really nice. It really makes things fun and interesting. Definitely being, one of those interesting sort of speeches. But yeah, I will say, this episode probably was the weakest so far. Again, the big problem was the pacing. You couldn't get into it because every scene was ending so quickly. I mean, there were things about it that I did love, and I will probably revisit this one. And it's overall a good episode. It just needs more time. 45 minutes isn't long enough to tell this story specifically, without having to cut out some of the subplots and character arcs. Because you possibly could do it, but it's just, just, can we go to a series of all 2-parters? Series 9 doesn't count, because we've never had that, because that could be great. You'd have less writers overall, but I think you would get something interesting. But overall, I enjoyed Orphan 55. I thought it was, a solid episode. If I were to give it a score, it's probably a 6 or a 7 out of 10. I'm leaning kind of towards a 6, because there was just a lot of issues. But it was a good, solid slice of Who. And I still think Series 12 overall has still been, even in the 3 episodes, has been better than Series 11. Because, these are probably not the best episodes, but they are definitely memorable. But yeah, so thanks for watching. Please leave a like, comment your opinions on the episode. I want to get a conversation going. I read the comments. I don't always respond, but I will try. And subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, coming up on the channel, we've got more marathon episodes. And of course, next week I'll be back for the next episode.